How do I normally start my videos? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. My name is Sarah and you're gonna have to deal with me in this video because I have been drinking since 12 o'clock and it is now 7:30. So cheers, motherfucker. I'm not even looking at the camera. I am looking at the corner of my wall. Oh God. I put new bookish content out every Thursday at 7 p.m. So if that's something that intrigues you, please stick around. In today's video, we are going to be going over the 10 books this year that really just didn't do it for me. They were my most disappointing reads. Just because I didn't love these books doesn't mean you won't love these books. So please don't take these words to heart if these are some of your favorite books. It's just for me, they just weren't cutting it. Starting off with the first book, which is Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. I was recommended this book because I love ACOTAR, and this is another Beauty and the Beast retelling. In this book, we follow our main character, Nyx, who has been betrothed to the Demon King of her kingdom ever since she was in her mother's womb. Now that she is of age to actually be married to him, she has been training her whole life to kill him so that her kingdom is no longer under his rule and she can kind of take over. Once married to him though, and now that she is living in the palace with him, she realizes that the circumstances that she is in isn't really the Demon King's fault, and she's starting to fall in love with him. So this definitely has a lot of enemies to romance lovers themes to it, but it just didn't hit the marks for me and I just didn't really enjoy it. Maybe if this book was turned into a duology I would have liked it, but I think there was just way too much history packed into this one book that it really dragged the story down. And while I was really enjoying the relationships that were being built, once it went into the Greek history, it was like one step forward, two steps back, and I just didn't really enjoy it, and I couldn't get into this book as much as I wanted to. The next disappointment of the year was To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This book I was so excited for. Not only did it have pirates and mermaids in it, but it was also an enemies to lovers romance. I thought I was going to absolutely fall in love with this book, but that just wasn't the case. In this book, we follow our main character, Lyra, who is a siren, and she steals a heart for every year that she is alive. In the process of stealing the prince's heart of a nearby kingdom, complications happen and she gets trapped on board. And in the process of being trapped, she also falls in love with said prince. This is a twist on the Little Mermaid story. If you can't already tell, I really like riffs on fairy tales. But this one just didn't deliver what I wanted out of the relationship. I thought it was an extremely slow burn, and I think all that really happened was maybe a kiss. Romance aside, I think the whole ending of this book was, while really exciting and action-packed, it didn't make a lot of sense, and you didn't know what was going on the last like 50 pages of this book, because I don't think the writing was as descriptive, or maybe it was over descriptive because just a lot of things were happening and I didn't know what to think. I don't want to bash the book entirely because I know so many people really enjoyed this book, but for me, unfortunately, I just really didn't like the ending and the relationship where it was at the ending, so that's why I just couldn't really get on board with this. Following that was Graceling by Kristen Kishore. I've talked about this numerous times on my love-hate relationship with this. I think it was a great book and a great concept, and the magic system behind this book is magnificent. I just think that the plot line went extremely fast, and there were just scenes that like there was a complication and then boom, it was fixed and you're like, wait, what? Like there was no suspense, there was no building, it was just really fast. So if that's the kind of book you're looking for, maybe this is for you, but unfortunately I like to be on my toes while I read, and this one just went through the big plot twist extremely fast to make them not even twisty. Next, this was a disappointment that really got me because I really wanted to love this book, and unfortunately I did not. That book is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. There is a cult following to this book. There is a TV show for this book, and I know so many people absolutely adore this book and are such fans of it, but I just, no. I really wanted to be one of those fans, and while I loved where this book was going and the idea of a vampire and a witch falling in love, the amount of science in this book was not necessary. Like, I love science. Like, I majored in food science, so I'm big on science, but this was no. And it's a shame because if there wasn't as heavy laden of science as there is in this book, I really would have continued on with the series because I was really invested in the relationships that our main characters were building. But because of that science and the history that was just laden into this book, I just can't continue on. This is like a 600-page book, and it could have easily been 400 pages because 200 of it is just information dumps that you're like, why do I need to know this stuff? I'm not sure if the rest of the series is like this. I hope it's not. But unfortunately, this first book, as much as I wanted to adore it, it bored me to tears at some point. And because of that, I will not be continuing on. Okay, so the next book I'm going to bring up, I don't want to say it was a disappointment. It was just not what I expected. I finished the series. I loved this series, and I still am such a fangirl for it. So, like, I don't want you to think I don't like it, but I was just disappointed with certain plot points of it, and that's why I'm putting it in my most disappointing of this year. And that book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Okay, I know this is a very popular book, and I too love it. I love the book. I love the series. It was great. My problem I have with this, and what was disappointing to me, was how this book was pitched. This book is pitched as extremely enemies to lovers, and it is. I'm gonna tell you that it is. It is the most slow burn book I've ever read because it's not until the last book where things actually happen between our two main characters, and even then, at the end of the last book in the series, you still think they hate each other. So that's why this is in this series, because I went in this first book thinking it would already turn into more lovers toward the end of it, but no, they still absolutely hate each other, all of this. They hate each other in the second book, and they mildly tolerate each other in the third book. While I still love Carden and I love Jude, I just wish this was pitched different because I would have went into it with a complete different mindset. Number 6 on the list was a new release this year, which I really wanted to enjoy, but unfortunately I liked, but I didn't think it was worth a whole book. That book is Blood and Honey by Shelby Maherin. I absolutely loved Serpent and Dove, but when it comes to Blood and Honey, I feel like Serpent and Dove could have been a duology, and she's trying to make it a trilogy because this just felt like a filler book to me. This series is all about a witch and a witch hunter having to be in an arranged marriage and end up falling in love with each other. So while I don't think this was a bad book by any means, I think I gave it a fairly good score on Goodreads. I just was expecting a lot more, and I just felt like this was more of a bridge to the third book rather than being a solid second book. After that, a book I listened to on audiobook, which I've heard great reviews about, but for me it just didn't hit it, was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. For me, this book suffered the same fate as A Discovery of Witches did, was that it was a great plot and I was really intrigued by it, but the over descriptiveness of either the scenes or the history or whatever was happening with the main characters really dragged it down and slowed the book down to a point where I just don't want to continue on with this series, and that's what really disappointed me because I know how many people absolutely adore this series. Unfortunately, it was just way too much information overload that I just couldn't take it all, and I really don't care to continue on with the series because of the amount of information that's just dumped on you throughout the entire book. After that, another book that I was really disappointed that I didn't love was The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. This was my first Victoria Schwab book, and while it was my first, it won't be my last. In this world, you have 3 different monsters, and then you have humans, and the monsters can be defeated with music. And so our main character is a Sunai who can defeat monsters with music. And while it's an interesting concept for me, I just kind of I wasn't a band kid. Maybe I had to be a band kid to read this book, but it just didn't interest me, so I won't be continuing on with this series. And I think this is more on me than it is the book, because I think the writing was beautiful. I think the progression of the story and the relationship building was beautiful. I just personally don't like when music is that interwoven with books, but that's just me. A series that I've talked about way too much on this channel, so I'm briefly gonna go over it, but it was still a very big disappointment, was The Selection by Kiera Cass. I did not like this series. I know there is a huge hype for it, but oh my God, I feel like I'm reading Elementary every single time I pick it up. So no. Are you guys old enough when MTV, or was it VH1, had Next, like the TV show? That's what I would do with the Selection series. They would step one foot off the bus and I'd be like, next! Last but not least, the last book that just really disappointed me because it was so amped up was Truly Devious. I am blanking on the author right now, but I will have the book up right here. This was a murder mystery book and I was really intrigued by it, but I listened to it on audiobook, and I think that's where my downfall was, because I could not keep the past and the present and all the different characters separated, and that's why I just did not enjoy it as much as I think I would have if I read it. But I didn't like it enough in audiobook to actually read it in a physical copy, so I'm just gonna leave it in the disappointed section. I know that's a terrible reason to put it there, but that's my reasoning. And can I just say, for all of these books, I understand that everybody is going to have their own opinion. These are just my opinions. You may love these books, you may hate them. This is just what I thought of them. I am just excited to finally get 1 year under my belt here on BookTube. I hope you guys are enjoying the content I'm putting out. And please stay tuned for next week, because I will be putting the top 10 books of the year that I read that I enjoyed. Other than that, I hope you guys are having a great day and a happy holiday season, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.